Yes,
Hi, Nikki. Thank you
fantastic.
so very much. Thank you so much for taking time today to join me. I'm so excited.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really honored to be here.
It's so wonderful.
Beautiful.
I just wanted to take some time to share a little bit about your work, just things that I was reading on your website, and you
Hmm.
can share a little bit more. Tell me what I've missed if I don't share something important.
Sure.
So Nikki Chambers from your website moonsisters.org.uk, and I was reading today that you have been a student of meditation and yoga for many years of various types. You're writing since 80s, and also you mentioned shamanic training, which for me sounded really interesting. Also have a background in outdoor and wild education, and currently are a resident yoga teacher at Sura Detox retreats. The specific type of yoga you write about is Earth Sky Yoga, which helps us connect with nature as well as with nature within us and the senses and the
Hmm.
body and all through this connection that we have with nature. And your latest love, as you write, is womb yoga, which is
Yeah.
to nourish women through the menstrual cycle.
Hmm.
Nikki, this is so exciting. This is so interesting. This is a topic that I've been thinking about for quite a while, actually. And I'm so happy that I have you here with me to share all your wisdom and share your knowledge and tell us a little bit more about you. So it would be wonderful if you could tell me a little bit about your story, how you came to this point, where you started, how you came to these wonderful discoveries and these
Mm.
areas that you're working in at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. Well, all the little threads of this story to leave me where I am now go back a pretty long way, actually. My yoga journey started in my teens. And then in my 20s, I was working as a teacher in environmental education, so helping kids to connect with nature. And then in my late 20s, I had two babies. And I got really into pregnancy yoga and active birth. I had two beautiful natural births at home. And I think that was really the first time that I really met that immense power and innate wisdom of a woman's body. It was a huge initiation.
Of course.
And I carried on when my babies went to school, carried on working in nature education and that kind of thing. But really we can fast forward a decade at that point to my 40s, because that's when all these threads started to come together in a really juicy way. So I trained to be a yoga teacher
Mm-hmm.
and changed careers. And about the same time, I became aware of shamanism, and I started to learn from some really beautiful Native American teachers. And those two things started to kind of merge together. So I was starting to explore in my yoga classes like a more feminine way of practicing. So in a coming at it from an approach of real nurture and presence, and working more and more to use yoga as a way to connect with the energy of the earth and the sky, hence my name, Earth Sky Yoga, and with the elements, and kind of using all the things around us in nature as teachers that have got the things that we can learn from, which is a really beautiful practice in itself. And so that was all kind of coming along really beautifully. And then I guess in studying beautiful Native American and South American cultures, that's when I first came across the concept that moontime, when you're bleeding, is a sacred time. It's seen as a sacred time. It's like the body is having a natural ceremony every month if you make the space for that to happen. And kind of seminal moment one night when I was sitting late one night in front of the fire, and I was kind of inquiring into how to walk this earth in a woman's body in a really good way, in a sacred way. And I had a sort of classic download moment where it was a bit like the sky opened, and this very powerful woman's voice said, when you're bleeding, you don't really want to be doing anything apart from sitting on the earth, meditating and praying. I was like, wow, that's a strong message. So I started trying to carve out some time, like for the first 2 or 3 days of bleeding each month, to just be on my own as much as possible. Spend lots of time in nature and a lot of time just sitting in nature, just being and
Mm-hmm.
watching and feeling. And then doing the kind of yoga and meditation practices that I knew to connect into the earth. And that's when it started to get really juicy, and the magic just started to really flow, and from that point. And it was at that point when I discovered, to my absolute delight, that there was such a thing as womb yoga, which I didn't know about before. Just a friend took me along to a workshop, and my first experience of it was just such a massive yes. It was like, wow, this is like everything coming together in one place. And so I started to learn it and use it and share it in my classes. Everybody loved it, and so yeah, after a while, I went off and did the teacher training.
What is because that's what you say. The word "wow" comes when I first saw it. I also thought it's like, wow, this is so. It makes perfect sense. You know, just to have this type of yoga, to have this type of space as you talk about. Can you tell us a little bit more about what is womb yoga and
Yeah, sure.
how women can benefit from it, and you know, all the little things that could be useful.
So womb yoga it's a beautiful, nourishing yoga practice for women, and it was drawn together by this amazing teacher, Uma Dinsmore-Tuli, and she has really kind of practiced yoga all her life. Has been a teacher for many, many years, and very experienced, very knowledgeable. And she kind of started to get that all the classic schools of yoga are male lineages, and there's so many powerful and amazing teachings in there. It's not to kind of take away from that at all, but then they weren't designed for women's bodies, and they don't really support the kind of, cyclical nature of a woman's body. And there are some yoga postures and breathing exercises and bandhas and things that actually don't feel appropriate or comfortable if you're ovulating or bleeding or breastfeeding or menopause, or so she started to research into the early tantric roots of yoga and many other different sources, and kind of developing and crafting like a big sort of cauldron with lots of different ingredients, and came up with this whole new universe. And so it works on many different levels. So on a physical level, it's about using simple yoga postures to support pelvic health, keep everything toned and in the right place, and good circulation and nice energy flow. And then it helps you to work with your menstrual cycle to keep that healthy and pain-free, and on a more spiritual, energetic level as well, to connect the heart and the womb and start to really have a relationship with the womb space and to honour that space. In a lot of the practices are very, very simple, and they extend from there into connecting with the earth and all of the elements as well. So it was, already stuff that I was exploring myself, which is why it felt so perfect and so right. Yeah.
I think it sounds wonderful, Nikki. I think for many women would, a practice that can help have a pain-free cycle would sound like an amazing thing. I know some of my friends, family members, my sister have had quite difficult periods sometimes, and quite difficult experiences ever since teenage years, and I do think that part of it is probably the messages that we hear as we're growing up, the media, the way it's portrayed. So any practice that can help us get to the depth of it and connect to what it really is, I think it's really, really, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we can see some womb yoga in practice, something that you can tell us, some small exercise or some small practice that could bring it to life, to see what it's about.
Yeah, sure, I would love to. A really nice place to start is a very simple meditation with the breath. It's called Heart Womb River Meditation. Basically, between the heart chakra in the center of the chest and the womb chakra in the belly, in the low abdomen, there's an energetic connection, like a nadi or meridian, and you can visualize that as a river. It's like a magical river of energy that flows between the two, and it can flow both directions. So that's what we're going to work with. It's just a very simple way of honouring the womb and connecting the heart and the womb energy. So Yeah, usually this is done sitting on the floor, cross-legged. So if you're, for anyone who's listening who's able to get onto the floor, you can grab yourself a cushion and sit cross-legged or kneeling on the cushion and take a moment to get comfy. But you can also do this on the chair. So if you're sitting on a chair, you just want to have your feet hip distance apart so you feel like nice and connected to the earth. We're going to place the left hand over the heart and then the right hand on top. And you can close the eyes or just lower the gaze down towards the heart. So let's just start by kind of getting present in our bodies. So you can imagine that you can take a nice big breath right into the hips or into the pelvis and just kind of noticing all the parts of you that are touching the earth or the cushion or the seats. And then as you breathe out, letting the whole base of the body grow heavy and kind of settle down into the ground or the support that you're sitting on. So we'll just take another breath to really drop in. So breathing in, feeling like you can breathe up the spine, lengthen up. And then breathing out, letting the shoulders relax down, letting the hips grow heavy. So as you start to come into the body, you can feel the hands resting on the heart, and we're going to begin to breathe as though you could breathe directly into the heart space and out of the heart space. So as we're just breathing in and out of the heart, we're nourishing the heart with our attention, with our breath, with our awareness. And you can hum on the out breath if you like. And feeling the heart energy grow as we nourish it with the breath. So then breathing into the heart, and this time as you breathe out, you're going to let the top hand slide down over your belly and just kind of nestle around the low belly as though it's cupping the womb like a little hammock, and you can just let your belly go into that support of your hand and the warmth of your hand. So from there we're going to start to breathe between the two centres. So as you breathe in, you're going to breathe into the womb and let the breath come up that river from the womb up to the heart. And then as you breathe out, you're going to travel the breath from the heart down the river, back down to the womb. So we're breathing into the womb and all the way up to the heart. And then breathing out from the heart all the way down to the womb. And as you breathe, you're following each tiny millimetre of that journey along the river with your awareness, with your breathing. So you're matching the travelling of the attention with the length of the breath. Breathing up to the heart. And then breathing down to the womb. And with each journey along the river, you can imagine that connection is growing stronger and the river is growing stronger, shining more brightly. Maybe a silver river shining in the moonlight. So as the connection starts to grow stronger, you can breathe in, and as you breathe up from the womb, you can imagine that you're bringing all the wisdom and nourishment of the womb up into the heart space. And then as you breathe out, you can send all the love and compassion of the heart down into the womb. Honouring the womb, filling the womb with love. So maybe just taking one more breath up and down. And then the next time that you breathe up, you can bring the hand up and place it back on the heart and just take another couple of breaths in and out of the heart. And you can just gently release the hands and open the eyes. So it's a very simple practice, and you can do that for as long as feels good. That was just a little taster, but it's very calming and centering.
So thank you very much for the wonderful meditation. I hope that the video is there of us doing it. Was there another little practice or anything like that about warm yoga that that you wanted to share?
Yes, sure. So there's a nice one that kind of leads on from there that we can also just do sitting on the chair or sitting on the ground, even better. And so it's continuing that river between the heart and the womb, but we're going to continue it down to connect with the earth and then up to the sky. So we're going to start with the hands in prayer position at the heart at Namaste. So maybe we'll just do the movement first and then we'll bring the breath in. So we're going to point the hands forward and turn them right over. I'm just going to stand up a little bit so you can see. I'm making a triangle shape. So this is open yoni mudra. So this is the mudra of the womb. And we're going to slide it all the way down until it's just over the womb. And then from there, you can continue it down, keeping the mudra there, down towards the earth. And if you're sitting on the floor and it's comfortable, you can actually touch your hands to the earth. And then from there, you're going to carry on with yoni mudra all the way overhead and look up through the triangle and connect with the sky. And then I'm just going to bring my hands down a little bit so you can see, but you would keep them up high and you bring them round so the thumbs are still touching. And then you're going to glue the little finger edge together, so you're making a lotus flower. So that's up at the sky, and then you draw the lotus flower down, touching the thumbs over your third eye, your nose, your chin, your throat, all the way back to the heart. Yeah, beautiful. So we can bring the breath in now that we know what's going to happen. So we're going to breathe into the heart, turn the hands over into yoni mudra, breathing out all the way down to the womb. And then breathing into the womb, filling into the hands. Breathing out, carrying the hands on down towards the earth, or touching the earth. And then breathing in, stretching the arms overhead just as high as is comfy, looking up at the sky. Bringing the hands into the lotus, and then breathing down the center line over the third eye. And just gently touching the throat back to the heart, and then the hands come back to prayer. Should we do that a couple more times? So breathing in at the heart, breathing out down to the womb, breathing in, filling into the womb, breathing out down to the earth, breathing in up to the sky, making the lotus and breathing it down to the heart. Namaste at the heart, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in at the womb, breathing out to the earth, and then breathing in to the sky, and drawing the lotus down as you breathe out, coming to rest back at the heart. So there's many different variations, standing and reaching, and all of them are more beautiful done outside.
I love it, Nikki. I think it sounds like it's a perfect yoga for the days of the flow, for the days of the moon, for the days of bleeding, when maybe too much movement or too much intense yoga wouldn't necessarily be for every woman. But something like this seems like it's very gentle, yet at the same time you're connecting, you're moving, you're breathing, you're doing all the things that yoga is supposed to be about. So yeah. I think it sounds like a very beautiful practice. You know, the other day, about a week ago, I came across an article that really surprised me. It was an article about South American women and how in certain tribes women were able to control their menstruation, so they were able to consciously open up the cervix to release the flow on the days. And I read this and I was in complete awe and surprise and shock, and just thinking about how disconnected, unfortunately, most of us are in the Western world, and how for us it's just through growing up, through media, through messages that we hear, it's all the time. It's something that, like in Lithuanian, for example, in my native language, when we speak about menstruation, we say sickness, to be sick with menstruation. And that expression, ever since childhood, it kind of brings you up to the point when you're an adult and you're living with those messages. And in the media, we see advertisements all the time of something that is inconvenience, that stops you from doing sports or doing your daily life. And so I think it's so important. What about other practices? So perhaps in addition to something like womb yoga, what are the ways that women can nurture themselves during the days of menstruation, or to the days leading to it, or days after that? Is there something that we can, how do we prepare for it, and how do we connect to our rhythm?
It's really interesting what you said, those messages that we get growing up. Like in the UK, your period is sometimes referred to as the curse, the same as the kind of sickness thing. But actually, when you look at traditional cultures and indigenous cultures that are still intact, it's often a completely different story. And I think even in Europe, if we went back far enough in time, it would have been very different. And what's really beautiful right now is that there's this whole wave of women turning the whole thing around. And so you can actually see menstruation or having a cycle as an incredible gift that has all sorts of amazing things to teach you and ways to keep your life in balance. It's like having this self-checking system that can keep pointing you in the right direction. So actually it's like wider than just working with the menstruation the week when you're bleeding, because one of the most important things that I learned on my journey is that the menstrual cycle has 4 separate stages. They're about a week long, depending on how long your personal cycle is. And, we're not all exactly the same, 28 days, people vary. But it's so helpful to know about this. So, you have the bleeding phase, and then you have the phase when the womb is rebuilding its lining, kind of in preparation to receive the egg. And then you have the ovulation phase. And then if you don't get pregnant, then the hormones change again and you're starting to go back towards menstruation. And each of those phases has different energy levels, different qualities, and different skills come to the fore or recede away. So it's almost like you're 4 different women in one body. And each one, if you're working with it rather than against it, has these beautiful gifts. And the way that I found the simplest and the most lovely to understand that is to relate the 4 phases to the seasons, like the seasons of the year: winter, spring, summer, autumn. So when you're bleeding, that's winter. And if you think what nature's doing in winter, it's like everything's very still, it's very quiet, everything's resting, it's like it's gone underground. And so that kind of just tells you what you need to do at that time. Your body wants to rest. You need to be on your own as much as possible. You need to take rest, really nurture yourself, go to bed early, pamper yourself, eat healthy food, spend time in nature, turn inward, meditate, do some yoga, connect with the earth. And that is the time when the earth energy, which is so important for women, can really nourish you, and that's going to take you through the whole rest of the cycle. So the way that I do that is to kind of get organized in the days leading up to it. So kind of clean the house, do lots of shopping, make some food, let everyone know that I'm not going to be so available for 2-3 days. And that's kind of like preparation. So if you've got small children or you work fixed hours, you have to be more creative with how you're going to do that. But it's interesting, when I've had to work through that phase of the cycle, I have found that even just taking an hour to go out and just sit in nature and do some meditation, connect with the earth, that can be enough to really, really help. And the more that you can do that, the more you will find that in the following week, which is the spring, you get this huge burst of fresh energy, just like nature does in the springtime, and enthusiasm and kind of vitality. And so that is a fantastic time of the month to start new projects or start a new exercise regime, or it's also, you're in quite an analytical frame of mind, brain wise. So it's a really good time for doing detailed work, or like working with figures, doing budgets and stuff that can be really difficult at other times. So that's really helpful. You're really good at those things then. And then as you come into the summertime, that's when you're ovulating. And you're in kind of full glory, just like nature is in the summer. And there's a lot of energy, and the energy is kind of flowing outwards. So you generally feel more social, and it's a really good time for connecting with other people and sort of partying or meeting up with friends, and also for networking and pitching ideas for, in business, or because you're just in a really good place for empathizing and connecting and being received really well. So it's a good time for asking for help as well. And then you come to autumn, and just like, we've just had a beautiful autumn here. The leaves outside at the moment are really stunning, and you can really feel everything is starting to turn inward and quieten down, ready for the winter. The energy's dropping and things are getting quieter. There's a beautiful kind of still, misty feeling outside. And the same thing is happening in our bodies. So we kind of start to slow down, maybe feel a bit less social. So I find at that time of the month that I want to have a bit more time on my own. And this is the really interesting week, because this is the week that's associated with PMS and feeling moody. And for most women, that's the week they don't really like. They'd like to miss that one. But it's actually a really juicy week, because actually all those kind of irritations are messages from your body. So the things that trigger you, it's not that you're just a bit crazy that week. Probably those things are a problem the whole time, but it's just right now you're not able to suppress your emotions in the way that you normally can. So they're kind of pointing out to you things that you need to go and fix, or people that you need to clear things with, or maybe you need a bit more personal space, or you need to get better at asking for personal space, those kind of clues. And just the same way as it's a good time for working out those emotional clues of things that you need to work on, it's also a great time for clearing your space, clearing your desk, clearing your house, clearing your in tray, getting rid of all those little jobs that are always at the bottom of the list, and kind of just getting things in order. And it can also be a really amazingly creative time. So it's a great time for doing creative work and working on content or doing creative projects and getting organised so that you can take some time out as you come back into the winter. So once you understand this, everything changes and your whole life is going to flow so much easier. So you can start tracking your cycle, and starting with the first day of proper bleeding is day 1. And then each day you make a note what day it is, what's the moon doing, so you know how you're in sync with the moon, and what your energy levels are like, what your mood's like, what your appetite's like, whether you felt like exercising, whether you felt social or not. So as you do that over a few months, you start to see the patterns, your unique patterns. And then when it gets really good is when you can start to use that to plan ahead. So if you've got a list of things you need to do in the next month, then you can start to think, oh, okay, I need to do my tax return. I'm going to do that in the spring because I'm going to be all organised with the figures. And then those meetings, those important meetings, I'll do them in the summertime because that's when it's going to go the best. And then, I need to kind of reorganise the garage. I'm going to do that in the autumn time. And I'm going to make sure that those first few days when I'm probably going to be coming into my moon time, that I've put as little in the diary as possible and given myself some downtime to rest and recuperate, and then it all starts again. So you're working with the 4 different aspects in a way that's going to help everything to flow and be easier, and suddenly you're like better at everything because you're doing things at the right time for you. So it's, when I first discovered this and started playing with it, I couldn't believe that we don't all know about this stuff, because it makes such a huge difference. And yeah,
Just while
and
you're
it's kind of like a
speaking,
secret.
just while you're speaking, I'm thinking the same thing. I can't believe I haven't thought about it this way and how much sense it actually makes. It does make
Mm,
perfect sense because it is very much as you're saying. It's sort of an ebbing and going of energy every month, and it is very much of. I like the analogy with the seasons that um, whether we like it or not, we're very much connected to nature. We're very much part of it, and it's
yeah,
just recognizing it and sort of honoring it, and yeah.
yeah.
So,
And understanding it, that like flips all the weaknesses into strengths
yes.
because you know how to work with it. Yeah, it's really cool.
I really like it. How about Moon Sisters? Because that was initially what caught my eye on Facebook. Someone
Mm.
must have liked it or posted it or something like this, and I loved the title. I clicked on your website straight away to see what it was about, and I'm just sorry that I don't live in the UK to be able to
Uh,
comment on it because I really, really like it. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it's about and how
yeah,
you're planning to do it?
yeah, sure. So Moon Sisters is my new project, and it's like a drawing together of all these different things that we've been talking about. And it's also really interesting because one of the things that can happen when you start to take time out to just be when you're bleeding is that as you get more connected with your womb and with the earth, you can start to get immense kind of creative downloads coming through. And actually, it was in that time one day when I was doing yoga, and suddenly just this whole thing kind of landed in my head in one go, all the details, and I jumped up and wrote kind of pages.
Mm-hmm.
It was just delivered
Of course.
uh, like that. So yeah, it's a kind of journey of empowerment for women that takes place over 13 moons. So it's a whole year journey, meeting once a month to explore connecting to the womb, to nature, to the earth, to the moon, to our cycle, to each other as a sisterhood, and how to work with the menstrual cycle in the kind of ways that we've been talking about, and many other ways as well, kind of going back in time to the beginning of your cycles as a woman, and even back further into ancestry. So we'll be doing womb yoga, yoga nidra, which is like a very deep form of relaxation, very nurturing, meditations, womb tending, and ritual, dance, craft, all kinds of different elements. So we're going to be exploring it in lots and lots of different ways. And then in between the monthly kind of physical meeting, there's different things to try out and play with at home, and journaling and different creative ways to just to dive in as deeply as each person wants to do, basically. And so I'm going to be doing that for the whole of next year in Devon, and it looks like it's going to be happening in London as well, which I'm super excited about.
Sounds
Yeah,
sounds amazing. Maybe eventually you'll come to Spain as well to do them here.
yeah, yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Find a bunch of women, I'll come.
Yeah, of course, of course. How about women like myself who are, for example, coming to the point of re-entering to our cycle?
Mm,
I had a baby. I'm still breastfeeding her, so my cycle hasn't actually returned yet. And this is one of the reasons why this topic has been so interesting to me because as I await, I'm sort of excited and a bit nervous at the same time because it's just been such a long time since
yeah.
such a big part of what felt like such a big part of me, was has been paused. So, what about women who are coming back to their cycles? Is there something that you can advise that would help us to connect again, or some special
Mm.
ritual or ceremony that could help us as we enter back again?
Well, just as you say that, it just popped into my head that it would be really nice to mark that first bleed in the same way that we might have wished happened to us when we were young women, just starting our period for the first time. And for most of us, that wasn't something that happened. So it's also a really nice way to heal that maybe stuff that was missing because it's not part of our culture when we were growing up. And
It's amazing.
it can take quite a while for your cycle to come back, but you can still connect with your womb. One of the things that I really love about womb yoga is you can do those womb connecting practices anytime. You know, you can do it when you've just had a baby, you can do it after menopause, even if the physical womb isn't present anymore. There's still an energetic center. So yoni chakra, it's a chakra. Whether the physical organ is there or not, the energy center is still there. So we all have that opportunity. So just that simple breath that we did together at the beginning, connecting the heart and womb, is a beautiful one to do. Where to reconnect with your womb while you're waiting for your cycle to come back, or when it comes back.
Yeah.
And there's you know, you can add some beautiful little extras onto that meditation, so that while you're still here with one hand on the heart and one hand on the womb, you can close your eyes and you can imagine yourself into the pelvic bowl, as though that's a sacred space, a sacred bowl. And in the center of this temple is the womb. So that's like the innermost sanctum of the temple. So you can picture that you're leaving a beautiful offering, like some roses or burning incense, or just any way that feels like a really beautiful way to honor that space inside you. And
I love when you say, Nikki, to connect it back to the first time. I think it's so. I really really like it. I really like that you just made that connection, sort of coming back to it, and yeah, honoring the time when it happened for the first time. And as you're saying, for most of us, I would probably guess that it wasn't necessarily a very exciting experience, or we didn't really know what we were waiting for as teenagers, or you know, the messages. And again, the same thing. Perhaps even school preparation, which I think is usually like in my school years, it wasn't something that we really discussed. I mean, it was more from biology, anatomy course
yeah.
mentioned, and that was it. And then the rest was up to you, and hopefully your mom's, you know, guidance. But how can we then, you know, I have a baby daughter. She's still obviously very young, but as she's growing up, as she's obviously when she's a bit older and she starts asking questions, and she comes up to puberty, what are some other ways that we can share this with the girls, that you know, that we don't spread this message of curse or illness or whatever it is? What's the best approach, or what would you say? How do we you know, encourage this new generation of women coming up to connect with this important part of theirs?
I think it actually starts with you as their mum. I mean, it's beautiful for you because you're becoming aware of all these things while your daughter is still very tiny. And, you know, as they grow up and start to talk, they absorb everything around them. Like, they're so open and they're so curious. So the way that you describe your body and the words that you use and the way that you talk about it, and you know, little children notice everything and they go everywhere with you, even to the loo when they're tiny. So, you know, if you feel able to let her see your blood, and when she wants to know what it is, you know, this is my special moon blood, and it comes from this beautiful secret kind of cave that's in the middle of my body where you grew when you were inside me. And it's, you know, it's this kind of place of wisdom that has this amazing red velvet inside, and every now and then it lets the red velvet come out and washes everything clean and then starts again. So, you know, you, in whatever words you choose to use, you're kind of painting a picture of something that's sacred and beautiful. And the same with the kind of anatomy. You know, I think when I was growing up, I didn't really even have a word for all those parts of my body. And I remember being really shocked when I was about 10, and a friend of mine started asking me, and she didn't understand that a woman has 3 openings, that there's, you know, the little opening where the pee comes out, there's your yoni where babies and blood and things can come into the world, and then there's the other opening for poo. She didn't even know that basic anatomy. And it's so easy for boys, everything's on the outside, they can see it, they can touch it, but for girls everything is so hidden. So I think finding ways to make all of that really clear and out in the open is brilliant. And also just even the words that we use, maybe, you know, maybe it's good for girls to even make up their own terminology. But for me, I really like the word yoni. And it comes from India, so it kind of ties in with yoga, but because it feels like a soft, friendly, sacred kind of word, whereas vagina always feels a bit medical
It
and
does, doesn't
sort
it?
of like something that somebody else deals with instead of being part of me. But it's a very personal preference. I know one of the things that we did on our womb yoga training, which I loved, was we drew a map of our own territory. So we sat on a piece of paper with a pencil and sort of felt where the pubic bone was and made a little mark there, and then where the two sit bones are, and then where the tailbone is. And from there, you know roughly where the three different openings are going to be, and then we kind of labelled them with whatever words, drew them as a little flower in our garden, and gave them whatever names that we wanted to do. And I thought, wow, I wish I'd done that with my daughter when she was little. It's just like it's instead of just because it's hidden away physically, it's not something to be ashamed of. It's just a amazing, beautiful part of your body.
Very
So,
needed, very necessary.
and a really necessary one, yeah.
So true. So, and what about teenagers? Anything that, as the girls are coming up to their cycle, about to start bleeding? I know that, as you mentioned, ceremonies, first blood ceremonies. What are some of the things that you can suggest or advise?
I would love to see us coming back in sort of Western culture to a place where all of these major kind of gateways in a woman's life, these sort of initiations of the first bleed and motherhood and menopause, could be celebrated in a sort of ceremonial way or in some way. And people are starting to do that again, even in this culture for girls. But it's such a sensitive time of life. I think it's really important that the young woman herself has a big part in talking about it and what she would want. So it might be that having a kind of more public gathering or ceremony would just be excruciatingly embarrassing, and that she might rather it's just her parents and maybe they go and buy a special piece of jewelry, or she chooses somewhere to go for a special day, and just to be kind of honoured and pampered. Or it might be that she's really up for doing something. So I've done a very simple version with two girls of just going out into the wilderness for 24 hours with some women friends with their mums, and we made fire and we did crafts and we sang and we did yoga and we slept out under the stars. But she specifically they didn't want it to be about periods, but they really got the sisterhood thing and the kind of nature connection. And then actually the whole subject of periods came up anyway, and that was really great because it wasn't kind of being directed at them. It just happened to come up in conversation, and you could feel them kind of listening. But it wasn't embarrassing. But they're all so different, aren't they? So I think, yeah. There are books and places where you can look for examples of different ways to do that. And also, if there's a red tent gathering, or a moon group or a local celebrant, you can also ask those people for advice, so you can plan something that's just right for with your daughter. Yeah.
We still have a few years to
Yeah,
think through this.
got plenty of time to get ready.
Yeah. Nikki, thank you so very much. Any final words of wisdom or blessings or advice for us?
Oh, well, first of all, I'd just like to really say thank you. It's been so lovely chatting to you. Thank you for inviting me. And yeah, for people who feel really intrigued and want to find out more, there are books that you can read, and I really recommend anything by Alexandra Pope or Miranda Gray or Laura Owens, and you can get all kinds of different information about different ways to work with your cycle in a really empowering way. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, you don't need books, you don't need a map. The best place to start is that thing that we talked about, of just taking some time to drop in and be on your own and connect with nature and connect into your womb, especially for the first 2 days when you're bleeding. And the more you can do that, really, all of the wisdom that you could ever need is in your body and the earth's body. And the more you connect with those two, the more those gifts are going to start revealing themselves to you. So really, that's all you need.
Nikki, thank you so much. It's been such a wonderful time to chat with you and to really learn about these things. I've been really looking forward and wanting the right person to connect and gain some knowledge about this and some wisdom, and you've been the right person. So I'm so thankful for meeting me at the right moment. And for anybody who wants to find out more about Nikki's work, it's moonsisters.org.uk. I'll put down more details when I post this video. So thank you again, Nikki. I hope we again
Thank you so much.
reconnect again.
Thank you, Esther.
Thank you very much.